Chapter 6. Others. We are ourselves undiscovered lands. We exist in relationship with ourselves, with others, with our world. Our relationships are ecosystems of ideas, experiences, and transactions. Our relationship with others, our otherness in a literal and figurative sense, is highly complex. Sometimes we are faced with something that is new to us, but we reframe it mentally and force it into a box of something we already know and understand. We take the other and rewrite it into a compartment of ourself, breaking the power of its authentic otherness. The identity can act like a distortion field, warping all things into the limited vocabulary of your personal universe. When we are introduced to a new idea of virtue, we may presume we already embody this virtue, and then make middling examples to support this. Here we fail to step out and meet the other authentically, naked in what we are. Others are our great challenge, but they are our great opportunity. Without the other, we would be forever in a cave, watching shadow forms dancing in dimness. The other brings us out into space, even to the hardcore fogs of ozone that make our skins burn. The other is where life may come in cold and hard and dark. It calls upon our imagination and resilience to see the partnership of life sitting in there, curved and dormant, like a stranger's hand in nighttime's still indigo. Otherness. What do we mean when we talk about otherness? Otherness means our experiences, practices, characteristics, and behaviors when we encounter things outside of ourselves. But what is the self? It can mean many things. From the perspective of otherness, the self is squishy and malleable. It refers to all the ideas, senses, cultures, actions, touch points, feelings, intonations, attitudes, aesthetics, and preferences, which are closer to our immediate sense of who we are and what our life is. It is that fuzzy region of all those things that are closer to us. The region of the self contains things that typically are less challenging for us and allow us to maintain a comfortable inertia in our life. In general, it means those things that are familiar to us and the things that we welcome into our lives. It is those things we deem acceptable. Others, accordingly, fall into many buckets. They can be other people, challenging experiences, new ideas and perspectives, different cultures, tastes and aesthetics which are not familiar to us, emotions and facets of ourselves that we tend to repress, and many things that are uncomfortable, disorienting, or unfamiliar for us. Otherness, then, is an experience of encountering something beyond ourselves, which resides a bit further out from ourselves. How do we treat it? If the self is typically the abode of those things we find acceptable, then experiences of others are typically met with a kind of rejection. We find it hard to accept the other. We will need to transform it into something we can understand if it's something not immediately sensible to us. If it is a difficult experience, we may respond by claiming this is an unfair experience, something we should not have to put up with. If it is something we strongly disagree with, we may become a storm of bluster, condemning all those things that are so far from our values. We would wish to destroy these other ideas and eradicate this other from our lives. The practice of otherness, then, is developing how we respond to these experiences. When we are confronted with others, how do we respond? As we develop our practice of otherness, we may find that our own domain of tolerance and comfort begins to expand. We also develop some musculature, some skills which allow us to work with the others as they enter our reality. We learn to say, yes, this is right for me, even if it is not something we can make sense of. Can we look the strange creature in the eye? Can we embrace the alien and say, welcome, brother, for I know that we are meant to be here together. As we explore and develop our otherness, we will tend to cultivate a personal attitude of willingness. When facing the other, we cannot claim mastery or absolute power over the situation. We are in a complex, nuanced arrangement. We have to show up with who we are and just do our best. What we can do is extend our willingness, say that we are willing to be present with the situation, and give ourselves to this experience at hand. Each experience we have, especially if it is an experience of otherness, is a rich, dynamic crucible of evolutionary power. If we can reach into it, we can make an evolutionary benefit of any experience, developing relationships, gaining insights, cultivating the garden, making delights for ourselves and our loved ones. This happens slowly and quickly in its time, when we extend ourselves in a posture of willingness to the challenges that life presents to us. Powerlessness and the Shadow. I mentioned that we are not fully in power in our otherness, and this is perhaps the part of it that is most challenging for people. In many ways, our societies have a primary interest in maintaining power over ourselves, over our lives, over our environments. Where I live in the United States, many people own firearms because they feel it is essential to have the power to defend themselves at all times. Accordingly, many of our popular movies and videos involve protagonists battling and destroying monsters, attackers, or political opponents. They can be seen as revenge fantasies, power fantasies, rejection or elimination fantasies. When I watch movies or TV shows with acute depictions of bullying, intimidation, or oppression, I feel compelled to fantasize about the aggressor being overpowered, even being punished. These instincts can reflect an inner need to feel that we are in power and in control. They can mean a rejection of our essential vulnerability to the forces of the world. Yet the other is always at play in its many forms, and where there is otherness, we must give up some measure of control to the situation. This feeling of powerlessness, the notion that there are scenarios where we are subject to the powers of the world, the unknown lurking in the darkness, is one of the most difficult things for people to process and familiarize themselves with. People make many, many life decisions just to escape this feeling of powerlessness. But the difficult and dark fact is that we are powerless at times. It is a hard fact. I have spent many days, weeks writing and processing these feelings that have emerged from within me. Many of them arose organically and pervasively following the birth of my daughter. This amazing, beautiful creature entered my world and reshaped my life, complicating my access to time and space, placing me in the hard machine of parental responsibility. Powerlessness is a hard, dark, sticky sentiment. We often reject it and repress it into the pockets of our soul that live outside our awareness. We don't want to feel it or see it. It resides in the shadow, the Jungian concept that refers to the space in our psyche where we repress aspects of ourselves which we disallow or reject for various reasons. Jung also said that the shadow is 90% pure gold, meaning it houses essential blocks of our humanness that we sequester from sunlight, from water, from warmth and visibility and affection. The shadow is a great other, in some ways, the greatest one. And as we uncover and unpack those areas of our shadow, we will find ourselves more deeply integrated and whole as valid, multidimensional beings. Relating to others with spirituality. We all have some space inside of us where we think about how we relate to the universe around us. We all have that intimate, personal space, and this is typically the space we enliven and express in our spiritualities. We cultivate our relationship with our lives, the universe, a higher power, and ourselves. It becomes quickly challenging, however, when we want to share these parts of ourselves with others. These spaces diverge in each of us. We have differences in our outlooks, our language and definition, our belief systems. We each look at the world differently. We define our universes differently. We feel differently about these things. I think we all crave to share our spiritualities with others. And unless we share the same tradition, and even then to varying degrees, we see the world differently. And so this intimate part of ourselves becomes sequestered off from the rest of society. We are not able to share our intimate and spiritual selves with those around us, and this can create a sense of estrangement or frustration. We may truly enjoy our friends, our coworkers, our colleagues, our family, and yet this area becomes a sticking point. We aren't able to relate to others in this deeply personal area. Sometimes we try to build a bridge and share our ideas and viewpoints, but we are often met with difficult conversations that leave both parties feeling disappointed. People do not hear us. They do not want to hear us. They do not agree with us. They find our beliefs or ideas incorrect. They need to correct us or ignore us. They cannot abide the difference in our spiritualities. They cannot abide the fact that we are unique from them. They cannot tolerate this diversity of viewpoint. But why is it this way? I think there are multiple factors at play here. I believe religion has, in many cases, been shaped and colored by political power or social engineering. That is, religion has become more than a purely personal spiritual pursuit. It has also become a domain of social conditioning, prescriptivism, dogmatism, coercion, and violence. Even if there is no overtly violent concept at play, spirituality has been charged with a desire to proselytize others, which is its own form of violence. To proselytize another is to interact with sincere desire for them to change their views of life. While this may not sound terrible on the surface, If we consider the sanctity and intimacy of personal free will involved in choosing how we see the world, we see that the intention to change someone's mind is highly manipulative. It degrades the person and asks them to not be creative, but to merely follow. It asks them to degrade themselves by removing their volitional choosing. It is important to note that this proselytizing attitude or any attempt to change someone else's viewpoint on things, or even refusal to accept that person's viewpoint, in fact registers in that person's energy. So while many of our classical and modern thinkers agree that the zone of conduct is in our outward physical actions, we must understand that our intentions and energies also make an impression on the world around us. So simply by desiring for others to change their viewpoint, or conversely, simply by not tolerating or accepting or being open to hearing someone else's point of view, exerts a kind of pressure on that individual. It fails to create a space for that person's individuality and unique personal context of reality to be received by you. By that same token, when we are truly open, truly willing to hear that other person's point of view, listen to their spirituality, make space to hear their beliefs, this can be remarkably new for that person. When they feel it, it may feel like something impossible has just happened. To actually express ourselves about this thing which is so strained and difficult and taboo, to finally get to express it and be accepted, encouraged, and nurtured, even by someone whose beliefs do not wholly align with ours. This is a remarkable experience. And how can we say this is not a path forward for the whole of our species? And this is something that is not merely done in the physical, by doing our personal development, working ourselves so that we become more tolerant. We will change the qualities and behaviors of our energies, and that acceptance will be felt. Being ostracized. Many of us, in one way or another, know the pain of being different. We look back on our relationships from the past, and we see how they have been changed by our own personal changes. We wanted to grow and evolve. We wanted to follow our purpose, but in so doing, we put ourselves at odds with the people in our lives. Our families, our friends, our colleagues. We felt stuck between worlds. Maybe we felt like we had to hide ourselves. And further still, we would find those individuals who would resonate with different facets of our personality, some connected with us on personal history, some with political outlook, and others with our spiritual path. It is often those individuals with whom we had some spiritual affinity that we felt the closest kinship, but nevertheless, there was that feeling of segmentation. I think that as a society, we are simply too contracted in our ability to allow different cultures and viewpoints to enter our world. And through practices of otherness, by bringing this idea into the forefront and making it a part of our personal viewpoint of ethics, we can create a world which is more tolerant in a deep, holistic sense. We can make a world where we listen to each other deeply and hear the viewpoints of one another. A world where we have some competencies in understanding the background of one another, of seeing the motivations behind our choices to color outside the lines. A world where we can finally feel understood and practice our virtue of understanding others in a promising and remarkable development of otherness. Importance of other people. Other people are truly essential to us. Sometimes I say this: we ourselves barely exist but for the lens of our relationships. We look at our values, our wants, and so many of them are bound up in other people. We want to do well so others will love us and think well of us. We serve to support our families or communities. We crave a status so that we will be validated in the eyes of others. To achieve greatness or fame means one is known by others. If we are not witnessed, we fear we never were. Sometimes people interpret this concept through a secular lens. The idea is that we will eventually die off for good and truly vanish, but if we are remembered by others, we will live on indirectly through their memory. I feel this is a sad concept because there are many great people who have been forgotten. I think of the women, the workers, the grandparents, the teachers who came and went and did not dent the register of the learned men who wrote the books. And it has been a great liberation for me to recognize, as expressed in the multidimensional lens, that life persists and our journeys will continue after this body decays. There is no shame in flying under the radar, and we can, in fact, live rich and authentic lives without the pressure to impress others. What we truly want, I think, is to know that we are seen, felt, and experienced by others. And likewise, we want to see, feel, and experience others. In a sense, we are living one eternal moment that moves and writhes and shimmies, and touching a single second of human connection is as great as anything. In this intimate co-creation, I think we commune with something fundamental in reality. My heart is your heart, is every heart. We are softened for and by one another. The universe knows us, and the mind feels a sense of completeness rendered in the eternal archetypes of humanity. So this is why I say that we ourselves barely exist, yet the others are like a redwood forest, substantiating the fixtures of our life. And this is why when a person enters my world as a phone call or a bad driver or a barista or my family, I remind myself to say, yes, I trust you. Yes, you are the right person to be here now in my life. In this moment, we are for each other, and I will do my part to be here fully for you and make space for our connection and its meaning here in this very moment. And all the while, meet them precisely where they are at, hearing the clarity of their personal, extemporaneous expression. What amazes me is how the power of an instantaneous connection with another person is available to us all the time. With just a look, a smile, an expression of care, we can share a moment of humanity with an absolute stranger. Like some of us, perhaps not all, I have struggled at times to be a decent human being. I have in the past had a tendency to lash out at people in public when they got on my nerves. I sometimes feel embarrassed when I see videos online of someone having a meltdown in public, because I know that on an especially bad day, if I had a bit less energetic self-control, I might have wound up starring in such a video. And what has amazed me as I've worked on this trait is how spontaneous and easy is the choice to make someone new into your friend or your enemy. So I ask myself, would you rather live in a world full of your friends or a world full of your enemies? This is a choice within the scope of our creativity. People and relationships are immensely malleable. Even people we have a checkered history with can have the relationship reframed quickly if we present the particular qualities of presence and openness, affection and charity. If we show a person genuine kindness, if we evidence trust, they are likely to reciprocate, activating that natural bond of brotherhood, which is latent between all human beings, being shaped by our relationships. We can look at our relationships with others as well and see the way that we have been shaped by them. Our parents, our families, our friends, the people we knew. Can we accept them into the course of our evolutionary curriculum? Can we recognize their traits and accept them into our lives? Can we see those important people of our past and say, yes, I accept you. I trust that you were the person for me in this life. Our relationship was a space of learning and growing. I extend myself into a space of willingness where our relationship took place. I am strong enough for this, and if I am not strong enough today, I trust that I will one day be strong enough to extend my willingness into the core of this relationship and recognize and validate it as interwoven with my evolutionary curriculum. Growing our global nervous system. When we practice otherness and apply ourselves to the challenges of the world around us, we are immediately confronted with all those different beliefs, lifestyles, values, and cultures at play in our world. It is a profound practice of otherness to extend ourselves into these strange flocks and come to understand them more deeply. And yet, such an extension is a profound process of growing and expanding ourselves. One principle which can be enormously helpful is to form meaningful personal relationships with people in the different regional and cultural pockets of our world. People from different states, different countries, different religions and ethnicities, even those ones that we may have some fixed, biased, or negative impression about. Get to know them, see their value, see their merit. It will make it permanently harder for you to casually dehumanize that group because you have entangled the nerves of your identity with this other person in this other group. And now when you choose to condemn that group, you realize you are attacking your dear friend and thereby attacking yourself as well. You feel that pain because you have attacked someone you care about. This is not a process of saying we agree or approve of everything in the world. Rather, it is about finding those individuals and their individual qualities that are admirable and meaningful to us. If we get to know someone, anyone, in an intimate level, we will begin to feel that vital dignity and life force within them. We will sense the humanity in the foundation of their souls, and we access a perspective wherein we no longer condemn them or coerce them or violate their will through a coercive thought about how they should change or be different or learn to think more like us. We will learn to treat them with humanity. Beyond this, we will doubtless be surprised at the level of intelligence and capability in these other groups. Energetic taste and preference. One thing that I have noticed is that there is a kind of energetic taste that people have, certain preferences for particular feelings, ideas, schools of thought, tones. Just like an individual may listen to certain genres of music, baroque, grime, jungle, nu metal, acid jazz. Some of these appeal to us and some of them don't. If we try them out for a while, we may or may not acquire a taste for them. This preference has a lot to do with our upbringing as well as our own individual characteristics. Likewise, with culture and energy, we can see that there is another kind of taste at play here. Individuals have energetic taste, and this will dictate the kinds of norms, styles, philosophies, or intonations which are acceptable to them. Understanding this is a helpful step in moving past that divide and connecting with people who live in energetic characteristics that are different from ours. Knowing that there are different tastes of energy, how many of us can truly say that we can stand in a foreign energetic field and be at harmony with it? This is a great undertaking and a tremendous opportunity for growth. If we lived in a world where people could do this, I think we would be living in a different world indeed. The other of growth. Relating to the other in a general sense is an important facet of our evolutionary curriculum. Why is this important? Because evolution means meaningful change in an outward direction. And if we do not extend ourselves in some way beyond the frontiers of our identity, beyond those familiar touch points that form the foundation of our psyche, then we will limit our growth a great deal. When we allow ourselves to cultivate a deeper relationship with the other in many ways, this opens up pathways for a great deal of growth and learning. One pertinent example of the other would be a new understanding of ourselves. Given that our current self-concept is more or less how we identify with ourselves, a change to that concept is a kind of other entering our reality. This change to our self-concept can come in the form of feedback, of outcomes, of ways we make people feel, of relationships. In many cases, when a person is confronted with some possibility of understanding themselves in a new way, especially if it makes them seem weak or immature, a person may find it too painful to confront it head on. They may feel confronted by some new information that seems to challenge their identity, and so they are unable to process the information. They apply some self-defense mechanisms to evade the information, its implications, and how it makes them feel. In this case, their ego would be protected, but the individual may not absorb much evolutionary value from the experience. When we find ourselves facing challenging feedback, we can remember our personal ideas of nonviolence. We do not need to change. We are in touch with our essential dignity. And seeing the possibility of doing things better does not preclude our value as multidimensional people. Protected at our core by these positive personal truths, we may find that recognizing our own flaws and envisioning the possibilities beyond them need not be so painful. When I am stressed by the challenges of life, I try to remember that every challenge is new and fresh and alive for me. And I tell myself, I am on the verge of a breakthrough. Something great is about to happen. If I can do this, I can do anything. Truthfulness. Many areas of our society tolerate or even require untruths, deception, and distortion of reality. Competition, expediency, culture, and convention may seem to dictate that we are not truthful people in some cases. I think about the worlds of politics, of business, of finance, and even the complex dynamics of relationships and groups. Some people will even study and coach others on how to produce favorable reactions in others based on calculated, manipulated presentations of information. While not everyone is enmeshed in a system of manipulated information, many of us have some area of our lives where there is an element of deception or inauthentic presentation to the world. From this standpoint, truthfulness itself looms like an other. We may fear what truthfulness would do to us because it could threaten the structures that we have built on top of misrepresentation. A common case is people who make pervasive comments about themselves and others in order to project an artificially inflated view of themselves to impress others, a habit I call perceptioneering. On a somewhat grander scale, I think about individuals in positions of power and influence who choose to continually distort information in order to protect their power structures. For those who struggle with a gap of truthfulness, I offer some personal ideas to explore. For one, we are continuous and ongoing multidimensional people. Our fundamental being and validity is not enabled by any social function. We are already enough. And if we feel our life will truly begin when we move beyond some distortion, then this life is ours to have if we wish. Second, I offer some trust in the ongoing support and regeneration of the world. I tell myself, if we choose to die by the truth, trust that life will rebear us anew into a better world. Or, more bluntly, let the truth kill you. As in all things, we can gather the sum of our insight, temperament, tact, and wisdom to authentically pursue a way forward. I am not encouraging indiscriminate radical honesty without regard for consequence, but where there is a will, there is an energetic way. Anonymous donations. There are days when I feel like the pipe fittings of my body have been loosed and I am hemorrhaging energy into the ether. I lie in bed and breathe heavy. I feel tender and vulnerable. It is hard to rouse myself to my feet or to any task. I have come to understand these days as times of donation. In our house, we call this pressure or bait. I would like to call it hosting, with the idea that I am hosting non-physical people in my field of energy. However, it is more likely that there is some process which is in need of my energy. So I make it a point to allow others to connect to my energy who need it. On these days, I need to give myself grace that I won't be as capable or productive, and I will understand that it is harder to accomplish things during this time. Sometimes I take some time off of work, and I sometimes have to eat some extra food with little discrimination. I just need to fuel and accommodate the process. This may happen when something significant is going on. Perhaps someone is ill or in hospice, or there is a major life transition happening. My energies, I hope and surmise, are being called into the chasms of these tectonic events. My hope is that they will soften landings and ferry my dear ones to their shores unharmed. Multidimensional pressure. There is one final other I wish to discuss. It has cast a shadow over my life in various ways. It is in some ways quite mysterious. I hope to understand it better as I grow and develop in this life and beyond. For now, I will share my current understanding of it. This other is called multidimensional pressure. There are times in life where we feel the energies in our field, in our environment, in our very world seem to close in on us, compress us, and drag us down. It may feel like friction, blowback, or diffuse discomfort. This is different from routine intoxication because it persists despite a personal process of detox. Also, as someone who has worked with energy for a while, the quality of energies in multidimensional pressure is a bit distinct. It is like a diffuse heaviness that makes it challenging just to get through the day. Multidimensional pressure tends to precede events, gatherings, or changes. In particular, I experience some amount of pressure in the days leading up to a class or workshop that we are organizing. It can be quite trying. On those days, I remember to not demand too much of myself and to be understanding of my natural limitations based on the multidimensional process I am going through. What precisely is the nature of multidimensional pressure? Sometimes it seems to be a result of connecting energetically with a person or process before it happens. It is almost like doing energetic prep work before an event, setting the stage energetically for the unfolding energetic field of the eventual gathering. Other times, it can be a result of trying to undergo a personal change. Perhaps we are trying to make some personal adjustments to our behavior, our mindset, our beliefs about ourselves. This can come with some multidimensional pressure that almost seems to resist our personal changes. In this case, sometimes I theorize it is a force our ecosystem exerts on us, resisting the various changes that will occur when our energetic composition is altered. In this case, we sometimes talk about individuals going through a bottleneck, a period of more difficult constriction as we try to navigate ourselves through a personal change. In these cases, it is important to remain steadfast and equanimous in the face of challenges. Here is a place where a nonviolent posture can help a great deal. We keep our passions tempered. We stay clear-headed about those changes we are choosing for ourselves and our lives, and we proceed calmly through the storm. One interesting and essential facet of multidimensional pressure is that it often does have a focal point or activity which can alleviate. This can be counterintuitive because we may feel like the appropriate response to pressure is simply to relax, stay centered, and weather the storm. However, there are cases where the pressure is due to a particular activity or objective that is ahead of us. Perhaps we planned to send an email, make a phone call, or organize something. It is like this is the lever that the pressure has culminated around. Once we pull that lever, we may find that the pressure begins to subside shortly thereafter. Following the experience of acute multidimensional pressure, I often find that there are amazing, effusive, wonderful fields of energy on the other side. For example, there may be difficult pressure before a class that ultimately has a magical, rich, satisfying quality to it. Yet I am still challenged by the acute difficulty of the preceding pressure itself. I do not fully understand yet why I have to undergo this difficult experience beforehand. I do think there are some opportunities to reframe how I understand the experience, to reshape my relationship with some new developments of maturity and even skill. But this is still a work in progress for me. And for me, the multidimensional pressure remains an imposing other in my multidimensional journey.